Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome my Hadith disciples, YouTubers and viewers upon the Sunnah to another episode of 5 Minutes of Faida. We've just arrived here in Doha, Qatar, in the airport, and it's about maybe 15 minutes before the break fast. And what we want to speak about in this episode briefly, brothers and sisters, is the correct way of making iftar. What is the sunnah with regards to breaking your fast? And what are some of the mistakes that are very common, do's and don'ts with regards to breaking the fast? The first point is that when you fast and you wish to break it, you must keep balance. Just like any other aspect in the religion of Islam. You have to avoid extremism, going overboard, being excessive. And you also have to refrain from being nonchalant and just not caring and being lazy and lethargic. This applies to every single aspect of the deen, and it also specifically has an impact upon your fasting. So therefore, what is the balance with regards to the iftar? And what is the means of excessiveness and extremism? And what is a means of negligence? We say is that first and foremost, iftar is very important for the Muslim. And the Prophet ﷺ has told us that the striking difference between our fast and the fast of the people of the scripture, he says, akalatu sahar, is the meal in the early morning. Now you may say to yourself or ask, that's not iftar, that's suhoor. We say the point from that hadith is that there is a difference. There is a core essence between the fast of the Muslim and the fast of other than the Muslim. And that also applies to the iftar. The Messenger of Allah, he tells us that my ummah will be upon good, they'll be upon khair, as long as they rush and hasten to break their fast. In other words, there are other people who fast, other than the Muslims, who delay their iftar. And they look at it as not a big problem. I'm not that hungry. I'm not that thirsty. We must continue to please God and worship Him and sacrifice and do away with our desires and whims. God doesn't need our worship, so let's do extra. And that's wrong. And that is a means of extremism, neglecting the iftar, unnecessarily delaying the iftar. On the flip side of that, those who go extreme are the Muslims who rush and they may break their fast prematurely, too early, and that is a major sin. As we have spoken and given a lecture on that in detail, the specific punishment of those who break their fast on Ramadan without an excuse. Another concept here is we find some Muslims, they go overboard in the time of Salatul Maghrib. If you're driving in a car, you're on a plane, or you're traveling, you'll find some Muslims, they say, no, you must wait until after the adhan. You must wait 10 minutes until after the adhan. You must wait until after the salat. You have to double check. The sky has to be dark, pitch black dark outside. And we say that is also a mistake. Rather, as soon as you're sure that the adhan is in, it's the proper time for Salat al-Maghrib, it is time to break the fast. And do not delay, rather you should rush and you should hasten. Another means of extremism, we could say, are those who overeat and they excessively gorge and stuff themselves when they have the iftar. And that's another problem, because now you have to make Salat al-Maghrib, you have to make Salat al-Isha, and also, you have to make Salat al-Tarawih. So how are you going to pray at night? How are you going to stand when you're bloated and full? Or we find some people, another mistake is they make iftar in the house and they eat and they don't go to the masjid. They don't pray in congregation. So how can you fast all day long, abide by Allah's rules and His legislation, and then do not go and pray in the masjid, which is also from the legislator? Allah says, وَرَكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ, bow with those who are bowing down. So that is another side. You see people, they make an error. So therefore, the whole, or the in and the out, is balance. Not too far to the right, and not too far to the left. But how do you determine what is to the right and what is to the left? You can only determine that if you have a furqan, if you have criterion, if you have something that you can gauge. And that gauge is one thing and one thing only, and that is knowledge of the authentic sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. When you have knowledge, when you know what to do and what not to do, you can avoid extremism and you can avoid negligence. Until the next episode of 5 Minutes of Faida. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.